How do you sell your property without paying any closing costs? Because a lot of times when you're working with a cash buyer, like us, national property buyer, the offer is that you're going to go ahead and sell the property and you're not going to have any expenses. Is that really true that you're not going to have any expenses? The answer is yes, with a small little asterisk. Typically, when someone like myself, when we buy a property from you, then we are going to pay almost everything except for a few things that then you're going to be responsible for, typically as the property owner. So let's talk about the things that we would pay. We would pay all customary closing costs. That means, whatever the title company that we're using, either it could be a title company or an attorney, whatever it depends on your state, and you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, that you do so with a licensed and insured closing settlement company. Again, in your state, that in your county, that is that that everything is being done correctly. So we're going to pay for all the transfer fees, the closing costs, and everything. There's no agent fees, so there obviously you don't have to pay for that. So we pay almost everything. What are the things that we wouldn't pay? The things that we wouldn't pay would be normally there's a proration of taxes. So let's say your taxes. Let's say we're closing on the property in the middle of June. And the proration of taxes means that, let's say the tax bill is $1,000 for the entire year. And so then that means if you close in the middle of June, you've owned the property from January to June. And then now we're going to buy it from you. Now we're going to own it from June to the end of the year. So technically, you've owned the property beginning of the year. So typically what the title company will do, they'll do a tax proration, meaning that on the settlement, you'll have deducted from you your share of the taxes since you lived at the property. Number two is if you have any sort of liens or any sort of encumbrances on the property. So let's say you had a tax lien, or maybe you had a code violation lien because the city got after you because you had a bunch of stuff in the front yard and you never took care of it. Those items, you want to make sure that you cover up front. If you do cover those up front, you have a higher likelihood of trying to get those covered by the cash buyer because they know that up front and they're making the decision with that number in mind. However, if at the last minute you come with those items and you either neglect to say what those items were at the beginning, maybe you knew about them but you didn't want to say anything, or if you found out at the end, then those items you might be on the hook for unless you negotiate something else. And the last but not least, of course, is the mortgage company. If you have a mortgage on the property, then they're going to go ahead and the title company is going to pay off that mortgage and take the proceeds from you, pay off the mortgage, give you the proration of taxes, and then at that point then they'll cut you a check and or wire in order for you to get your money and fund the deal. That's why it's important to do with a licensed and insured title agent, to make sure that that mortgage is paid off, those liens are paid off, so that way nobody can come after you after the fact. And that's what it means when just answering the question of, hey, what does it really mean when a cash buyer says they'll pay all your closing costs? Is it really all of your closing costs? There's your answer.